Welcome to Out of the Teapot podcast, a podcast where we share incredible journeys of Zimbabweans who have stepped out of their comfort zones and into new countries, cultures, and experiences. Join us as we explore the challenges, triumphs, and inspiring stories of life beyond borders. Whether you're part of the diaspora or just curious about life abroad, there's something here for everyone. Tune in, get inspired, and discover the world beyond the teapot. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us on social media, and share your thoughts with the hashtag Out of the Teapot podcast. Welcome to the Out of the Teapot podcast. Today I have my absolutely favorite creator, big sister, lovely Mai Zuruvi. And today we're going to be talking about, the Zimbabwean experience, when you're the Zimbabweans in abroad experience, how we got to be outside and how she has survived in the diaspora. And I don't want to preempt here, but Mai Zuruvi is actually thinking about moving back. So we want to also talk about her experience, with living outside and why she has also decided to go back home. So without further ado, welcome Mai Zuruvi. Let's have
thank you
brief
so much.
introduction of yourself to the people.
So firstly, thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. And my name is Tendai Tandi, aka Mai Zuruvi, or Mai Zu. I am married to a Moyo Chirandu. So if you know Zimbabwe, I'm married to a Moyo Chirandu. So that's why I'm a Mai Zuruvi. Otherwise, my maiden name is Chipara. So Tendai Chipara. And then I was married to Mr. Tandi, and now I am Mrs. Tandi, aka Mai Zuruvi. So what can I say about myself? Just to introduce myself, I am married, very happily married, and I've got 2 children. My daughter has just recently finished her GCSEs, and she did very well.
Beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yes, so she's going to do her A-levels. So I've got 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I've lived in the UK now for 24 years.
Wow.
I don't know what else I can say about myself.
That's a beautiful introduction. And fun fact, Mai Zuruvi is actually my first guest, and I am absolutely ecstatic, if you can't tell from my voice. Let's go back. I'm assuming you said you've lived in the UK for 24 years. Let's go back to how it was like living in Zimbabwe prior to moving to the UK for you. How it was growing up in Zimbabwe, and then what prompted you to leave.
So I come from, my father is from a working background. My father is working man, and I got the privilege to be able to attend some of the best schools in Zimbabwe. So I went to boarding school. So when I was doing my O-levels or my GCSEs, I was at a boarding school called Gokomere High School in Masvingo. So I managed to do my O-levels and I passed. And my parents asked me, so what would you like to do during that time when you finish writing your O-levels and you're preparing to either prepare to go to do your A-levels or whatever?
Right.
And one of the things that I wanted to do was to see my mother, because my mother had come to the UK and I hadn't seen her for like 2 years. So I said to my dad, I would like to go and see mom in London, because, I'd done so well in my exams. And my mom was like, that's fine. I can find the ticket money, and then you can go to see your mom. Sorry, my dad said I can go to see your mom. So prior to that, my life was fine. Lived in boarding school most of my life. Went home for holidays. Went to see my grandmother. So by the time I came here, I was 15. I had no responsibilities. I had no strong attachments to any of my family members, really, because like I said, I spent most of my time in boarding school. Everything was done for me. My clothes were bought for me. I didn't have any bills. I was not responsible for anything. And I think that is a very key point that I'd like your audience to keep in mind. So when I came, I came on a holiday to see my mother, who I hadn't seen for a very long time. My life was very good, very cushy, very privileged. I didn't lack for anything because my father provided for everything. So I remember coming to the UK in the year of 2000, and it was meant to be just a holiday. And back then, all you had to do was pack your suitcase. You didn't have to apply for any visa. You didn't have to do anything. You just rocked up to Heathrow and say, I'm here on a holiday. And then they would just stamp 6 months. Off you go. So I was a 15-year-old. No one really asked me, you're very young. You were here by yourself. What is going on? I just said, I'm here for a holiday. And my aunt is waiting for me. She's the one who's going to be picking me up. And they were very happy with that information. And that is how I came to the UK.
Oh, beautiful. That's a beautiful story. It's sad that we don't have that much access to the UK now, where we can just rock up with our suitcases.
No. I think I would probably be one of the last people to be able to have done that, or the last few people, because I think by 2001 that was all removed. We had to apply for visas now.
Right. Okay, so then what happened after you came? Did you have to go back to Zim for school, or that is when you decided to move to the UK for a while?
So when I came initially for this visit, and I experienced a shell shock of my life. At one point, I thought, I don't think I've arrived in London yet. We are yet to arrive in the proper London. My mum lived in a room. She didn't live in a house. In this house, there were 2 other older gentlemen. And she didn't live in a big room at that. She lived in a very tiny box room. It was cold. She would go to work and leave me alone for hours on end in this box room. And I was scared to leave the box room because there were 2 men in the house.
There
were no cell phones. I had to go to one of those call shops, those internet shops, and they would have little booths where you could go and call. I had a bit of money that I was given, and that money I was meant to give it back to my mum, but I managed to keep some of it. So I would take that money out, sneak out of the house and go to those phone shops and call my father and say, please, I want to come back home. Please. I couldn't really explain and articulate what my issues were or what I was experiencing. The weather was bad. I didn't understand the English these people are speaking. Because it's not the English I learned. There's an issue with the accents. People have different accents and dialects depending on where you are in the UK, just like back home anyway. So sometimes I couldn't understand what they were saying. I didn't understand the money. The weather was bad. So my mood started to dip because I really felt lonely, even though my mum was there and I was happy to see her, but she was spending a lot of time at work. So there was a problem. But around that time, things also started to go bad in Zimbabwe. Things became very tough. And I think my parents reached that decision that at least one of our children has left. and she
Right.
is somewhere better. So she can stay. So my dad was like, no, you're not coming back. You have to stay because, things are really not good here.
Here and same.
But I was a 15-year-old. What do you mean things are not good? I didn't understand.
Yeah.
How can I have left home just a few months before and now you're telling me things are not good? Because
Things
I
are not
kept
good.
also looking at my return ticket. Back then, you had to buy your ticket with a return date. So I was
Right.
just looking at this ticket thinking, I can just grab it and I can just go back home.
Go home. Yeah.
But my
You
father
were
said
really
no.
done. You were
I
really
was
done
so
with the
done.
place.
I was so done. I didn't think this was the place for me. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone. Yes, in Zimbabwe, I didn't know anyone, but I lived in a household with a lot of different people, relatives. Like, I just didn't, I'd never felt lonely in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very hard feeling. And that is how I felt when I moved to this country and I just wanted to go. But the decision for me to stay, again, it was not my decision. I was 15. It was my
Right.
parents' decision. And I'm still on this
Yeah.
holiday now, 24 years later.
This is a very long holiday, I tell you.
It
This is a
is.
very
Now I have
long
a husband
holiday.
and kids. Yeah.
But how, after the initial shock with the UK, how did you start now integrating into like, okay, maybe this is an okay place for me to start? Did it become like instant or did it come way later in life? Did you have to go to school there after your 6 month break or? I'm so curious how you came to just accept that, okay, this is now home.
So you know how we grow up back home, you listen to your parents. What they say, you do. You don't really think. You're not designed to be a thinking machine. You're just
Yeah,
designed to
true,
be
true.
a listening and obeying person. So because my father said you're staying there,
Mm-hmm.
and another thing, remember I told you I'd go to the phone shops and I would call him. So this became something in my routine where I would just call my dad all the time until my dad said to me, you need to stop calling.
Oh my God.
You need to stop calling. Because I think for him, he realized that this child is, because of the
It's holding
homesickness
on.
and
Yeah.
everything, it was getting in the way of me, getting into the system. So,
True,
yes, I was
true.
15. But I was at that age in this country where is it compulsory, when you have to do it, or is it
Yeah,
mandatory?
yes, yes.
Yeah, that's because you go up to Form 4 in Zimbabwe. Here, every child must reach that age or that stage of education.
Right.
So in some ways I had aged out, so I couldn't come into the UK and get into that education system.
System again. Okay.
And I'd already done my GCSEs. I had already finished.
Right.
So the next stage was to get me into college. And in this college, these were not colleges you would go into because you want to really learn what is there. You go
Mm-hmm.
into that college so that you can now switch your visitor's visa to a study visa. That way, then
Okay.
you get your study visa, you can work. Because
Right.
before, as a visitor, yes, you can work, but you'll be working paperless, undocumented.
Right.
So to get you into college, it's money. So that means my mom now has to also work. But she also wants me to work because, baby girl cannot just be sitting at home.
Of course, of
So
course.
then she manages to get a deposit together. And she said, me, I'll pay the deposit for you to start the college. And then the rest you have to, they
Care for
say what they
yourself.
were like, in daughter as Wonela, you have to now fend for yourself so that you can be able to work. So
It's
that
so
is how
funny
I
how
ended up.
we are forced to like grow up so quickly in those parts of the world. Unlike at home where your parents can cater for you and paying the school fees right up until you're done with your college.
But now I had to do it myself. And I don't, my mom had to also do what she needed to, like, she couldn't,
Of course.
she
Cater
couldn't
for you everything.
cater for me. She was also doing menial jobs, care jobs, cleaning jobs. So those jobs were not paying a lot of money. So then she's got the rent to pay. Now she's got an extra mouth to feed.
And taking care of the people back at home as well. Yeah, definitely.
And the kids back, my brothers, because I've got two brothers. So she also had to make sure that, they're also getting a bit of money. So then I had to grow up quicker than I'd grown up.
Faster, yeah.
Then I ended up going to college. I got the college people, then they would process the visa process so that you can swap from visa, the visitor's visa, to your college visa.
Right.
Then I started to work, and my first job was a cleaning job. My mom tried to introduce me to care work, and that was a disaster.
Oh my.
Because the 16-year-old me, like I said, I came from a place of privilege. I knew my grandmother is there, but I'd never seen I'd never had to see her undressed or give her a shower or change her diaper or anything like that. Then all of a sudden, my mom takes me to this old people's home, and she's like, I've brought my daughter today just to show her, how to do this kind of job, because, she's looking for work. And for some reason, the people in this home, they allowed it. Yeah. And I was 16, and I went in there, and I'm face to face with an old person who is naked, who needs to be showered. I was shook.
That must have been a lot. That must have been a lot to your very young self.
I went and I called my dad, and I was like, you will never believe.
You will never guess what I had to do today.
You will never believe what I did. And just to give you a bit of background, my parents, they've been divorced for years.
Right.
So when I went to talk to my dad, I was talking to him saying, you will never believe what this woman, who's called my mother, did to me.
This woman is trying to kill me.
Old people. I was doing this. I could not really explain, Kuti. This was just too much. It was too much. So I think my mom noted that, I wasn't ready for that. So then the next thing is I got a job working as a cleaner. Right. So back in the day, you'd register with an agency, and then the agency would tell you to go to different places for work. So that is the kind of job I did. I started by working 20 hours a week. And I remember that I used to get £100. This was in 2008, which was it was okay. It was good money. So I'd get £100 a week, and I would do my 20 hours. So that is the job that I started doing in this country. So now that I think about it, to be honest, it was a lot.
It seemed like a lot.
Because I never thought I would do a job that is like cleaning. And like I said, my father is a professional man, working class. The kind of jobs that I envisioned doing, they did not involve cleaning, like me cleaning a toilet.
Especially with the shock of, like, how back home, when, like, back then, without now the internet and stuff, we had this vision of the UK or like outside as this place where you just get there and your life will change and you're swimming in money and you are in Hollywood and things are happening. Like, we're watching movies and like people were just living their very best lives.
Exactly.
So when you hear that somebody has gone to the UK, you're like, oh my God, that person is swimming in money.
But no, I was not swimming in money. I was cleaning bathrooms. I was cleaning toilets. I was working in care homes, doing the laundry, doing the washing, the ironing. I was doing all these things that, to be honest, I was very, very ashamed of, because I really didn't think that this was the UK, that this is life
Exactly.
in the UK. Is this
And
what
I hate
people do here?
the shame that comes with, like, when we move to outside the country, and people expect, or it's inbred in us that, you know what, when you go to the outside, you're going to be living a good life and stuff.
Mm.
So when we reach and we start doing survival jobs, or like starting jobs, it becomes like this shame spiral where you can't tell people at home, you know what, I cannot send you money right now. I cannot support you. I cannot do all this. I cannot give you an iPhone or whatever, because
No,
I can't even afford it myself. I'm working
no.
a minimum wage job, so it's not going to be. It's not like that. And because we have this thing of, okay, I'm outside, so I have a certain image
Mm.
to so I have to show that, okay, life is good. Okay, I go to
Yes.
the mall and get pictures, and people are like, yes, you're swimming in money, send us something. And it's not, that's not happening.
I'm so glad we didn't have social
At
media.
least, yeah, back
I'm so
then.
glad, because I think that by the time we had a bit of this Facebook, what I don't even know what it was called in the beginning, but by the time those things came in, even then,
Yeah,
accessing the internet was not for everyone. Smartphones were not
we're
just
not for
there. So
everyone.
I'm glad
True,
that I
true.
went
At
through that
least,
phase of my
yeah,
life with no
off
social
camera.
media.
I hear
I went
you.
through it
I hear
off
you.
camera.
I hear
I
you.
couldn't grasp that this was going to be my life. All my
Mm-hmm.
other peers are going to their A levels, they're going to uni, they're doing all those things. So those are the things that I didn't manage to do,
Right,
because
right.
I was busy doing this cleaning job, living in a room. I'd left my father's house with many rooms, with a yard, and I'm
Right.
living and I'm sharing a bathroom with strangers. I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, it didn't then become like the UK that you were always thinking about. It became something
No.
totally. So tell me about, like, how, like, you overcame that part of your life, and the personal and professional growth that came with it.
Right. So after doing the cleaning, of course, years were going by. Then I graduated to doing the care work. I
You are now
managed to
mature for it.
Exactly. I managed to reach a place of maturity, did the care work, and the trainings that come with the care work. Of course, you get opportunities to do things like NVQs and things. So you persevere and you do those things, and you've got the hope that I'll be a team leader in the home, or I'll be a team leader. Like, you are always hopeful. So I did that, and then I started doing support work, which is a bit different from care work, because you work
Right.
with different clients, like those maybe with drug and alcohol misuse issues. You work with people with learning disabilities or difficulties, and you don't have to do as much hands-on work. So for me, that was like a promotion. Oh, now I can just work with these people, come into a hostel and do a bit of hostel management work and work with clients. But there was never going to be any progression, because my
Right.
documents did not work out as I hoped.
Okay.
I didn't get the opportunity to, even though I went to college and they were supposed to process my student visa, unfortunately they didn't do like they were supposed to do. And back in
Okay.
the day, people used to be able to do like nursing. People used to come here and get into nursing, and then those universities will help them with their papers. But
Mm-hmm.
I am from a time where people came into the UK where everything was just changing. It felt like I would try to open this door, and then there's a change and there's a barrier for me to
To move
progress.
through.
So
Yeah.
even though I applied for nursing, I went for an interview, I got onto the course, they started to make people like me pay, to say now you have to pay the fees. But they're not like just ordinary fees. They're like international fees.
Exorbitant.
I can't afford it. So I would get like an opportunity, but then there would be something. Show us your documents, show us your paperwork, show us this, show us your leave to remain in the UK. I don't have it. So I started to just live a life where I was just very nomadic around places of work. And what comes with that is now this fear, right? You're always in flight or fight mode, that the home office are going to just come and they will take you, and then they will deport you, and this is now like, it becomes like your life. You look like you have documents. One thing about us Zimbabweans and most Southern Africans is we've got the accent. We can brag. We look like we have got everything together. So when it comes to people thinking of people who are without documents, you'll be the last in their mind.
On their list, yeah.
You don't have documents, but you speak very well English, because for them they think some kind of immigrant who doesn't speak English well is the one who's documentless. But amongst them, I was that person. So then, like I said, I would get opportunities, but they wouldn't progress anyway, because I had, little hurdles and barriers. And like I said, my documents were one of them. I'd get training opportunities, education opportunities. They wouldn't go anywhere. So that became my life for a very long time. But I lived a very long time like that until I became pregnant with my daughter, Liwanashe, who's our firstborn. And by then, I gave birth to her in July of 2008. And I remember looking at my child and thinking, what kind of a life are you going to have? Are you going to have a life that's similar to mine, where I am living a life as an undocumented immigrant
and being scared of the authorities and stuff?
Exactly. And being scared of authorities. And she wouldn't have access to anything, because she would have my status. It's not like she's born in Britain, she's British automatically.
Oh my, okay.
By then, again, they'd changed the law. Any child is going to just take on the status of their parent.
The parent.
So that meant my child was an illegal immigrant. And I realized I had to do something about it. So then that started a journey for us to regularize our immigration status. And that took years. It took like almost 6 years of us going through the system, going to the courts, going through all sorts of wahala and anxieties, and like, it's just trauma upon trauma upon trauma.
Right.
But the thing that got me through it is I had my husband. By then, like I said, when I came, I was 15. But along the way, I managed to find a boy. The boy married me. We got married. We had our family. We had our kids. So I was going through this. Now, when I was going, my mother went back to Zimbabwe at some point. So she went and never came back. And she left me to fend for myself. So
you know what's funny? I in the story, it's funny how you went from I want to go back home to I'm now, I'm scared to be taken back home to be deported back home by the authorities. It's funny how, like, when, like, in the beginning, it's like, this place is not my home, until, human nature, you adapt, until you're like, this is where I need to be, and I need to make an honest life of myself here.
Exactly. But as you can imagine, by then, I had now built connections, right? I had made friends. I had made friends. I was part of different communities, like a church community. I was, I don't know, I was doing all these things that made me integrate into the UK. Like I said, I had no choice. So at some point, I realized, okay, make friends. My mom tried to introduce me to people. So then I started with those people as my friends. Then I was a 15-year-old. I hadn't had a relationship, like a romantic relationship. So those things started to come into play. I hadn't gone clubbing, parties, what? So I sort of had that bit of my life from 16 up to the age of, so all those first experiences, they happened on this island that we call the United Kingdom.
Right.
So those were now the things that I was now clinging to. That whereas my peers who were maybe in Zimbabwe, they've already experienced those things in Zimbabwe. They've built those connections. But before I left Zimbabwe, I didn't have them. Now I've started to have them here. So you're right. It's so interesting. I've never thought about it, that I started from, I want to go home, to I need to stay here.
Like, this place is my home.
This place indeed became my home. I didn't think of going back to Zimbabwe. The thought never entered my mind, because again, in my head, I'm thinking, I've escaped Zimbabwe almost. I mean, a place where people would do anything to come to. So then it's very, almost ungrateful. You're coming as very ungrateful that you want to go back to Zimbabwe. So that thought never entered my mind, to be honest with you.
Right.
Never. So my thing was just to stay in this country now. That was my life and everything else, until I met Zuruvi. And then he was the first person I ever met who ever talked about going back home. And I found it very weird. And I was like, oh, well, who goes back? I never even come across, apart from my mom. But my mom had gone intending to come back. So I was like, I don't know anyone who's gone back to Zimbabwe. Who will go back to Zimbabwe for
Why
what?
would you want to go back?
Exactly. For what? So then my husband, children, everything else. So like I said, my child is the main reason that I entered the journey to start to regularize and to stay here. And it took ages. It took years. Yeah.
And did when you finally met this guy who was thinking about going back to Zim, did you ever think you would get to this point where you're like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna go back with you, because now we are building our homestead at what do you call it? I'm trying to remember what you call it.
The cottage
farmhouse. And it's a beautiful place. I said I cannot wait for this thing to finish, because I'm going to be an uninvited guest. I'm coming there. The way that place is so beautiful, it's coming up so beautifully, and here you were thinking, okay, building a life for your kids, and now they're grown, so you have done that. Well done. But did you, in the initial stages of Mr. Zoo saying, you know what, I want to go back home at some point, did it ever occur to you that you would also buy into that?
No. I really honestly did not think I would ever want to go back to Zimbabwe, because like I said, this is the land of honey. You know, this is the developed country. Why would I want to go back to Zimbabwe for what?
Right,
you know?
Right.
And also, I had things, that I thought one has to achieve in this country before they can even consider anything. If anything, I thought I would be moving to Australia. That was like my goal. I will go to live in Australia, but never Zimbabwe. I want to have a property here, make sure that we have our own house. And then when we have our own house, then we think about relocating to Australia, because the weather is good and it's almost like Zimbabwe. So those were the things I envisioned for myself.
Right.
But I got married to somebody who, in the beginnings, not even later, he had said, my life and the life of my family is relocating back home.
Right.
I never came here with the intention to stay.
Right.
It's only circumstances that led me to stay, but that was never my intention. So like I said in the beginning, I know I have no documents, you have no documents. So where are you going? Nowhere. And also I'm thinking, who goes anywhere? No one relocates back home. It's just chat. And I'm like, okay. So that pretty much continued. So by the time we got our documents in 2012, I thought, it's never going to happen. We have to sort life in the UK first. Like I said, buy a property. Because buying a property in the UK is like achievement top. That is
definitely
what everybody's aiming.
Yeah. You have to get your own place, get your own mortgage. That's,
That's like what we want to have.
Yeah.
So I was like, we're going to do all those things. So I went to uni. We were raising the children, and the children were small. We're raising the children. Life is happening. All different things are happening. So I thought it would forever be a pipe dream, something that, keeps you motivated in life, but it's a fairy tale. It's never going to happen until it got to the point where my husband was like, okay, I'm now ready to start the preparation for the move, and it's going to start with us building a place of our own. And he tells me we're building in the sticks in the raw areas. I think I'm a city girl. I've always lived in the city. Whichever city I've lived. You want me to go Kumusha? I don't have experience with things like who builds
Why would you
do
this to me?
Exactly. Like, you haven't even bought a house in Harare. You haven't bought a piece of land to build in Harare. You want us to go and live Kumusha. So for me, that was I couldn't get my head around it. So we had these conflicts. Exactly. Like, what are you doing? So then again, I would say, well, with what money? Because, we were people who were starting to almost rebuild our careers, jobs, and things like that. So most of the jobs we did, they were like low wage jobs, minimum wage
entry
jobs.
Level, yeah.
I'm thinking our family has to survive. So what money are you going to be using to send
to do this passion project?
Exactly. But my husband is very resourceful.
Oh my
so
God.
He would work extra hard. He would do all this kind of shit. Like somehow he made things work. And he would have money to send back home to clear the land, do this to the land, all sorts of things to the land. Before you know it, he started to go back home doing it. But we had a lot of disagreements, a lot of conflict, a lot of this. Until one day I realized that there was no peace in my home because he was going one way and I was going another way. We just couldn't work things out. So I ended up being the person who I prayed to God. I said, God, you know what? Let me give this man peace. Yeah, let me give him peace. And the way that the peace is going to look like is me buying into his passion project. Yeah. So it also coincided, like we had a trip to go back to Zimbabwe. We went to Zimbabwe, and I remember that trip. I listened to how I felt, when I got to the airport, and I felt feelings of what it feels to be stress-free. I felt it. I got to the airport, I felt it. I said, okay. It's like a weight has been taken off my shoulders. I went to where we were building the home. I saw how happy he was, showing me everything and so everything just sort of fell into place. And then I started to say, you know what? I can see myself living here. And I love my husband deeply. So much so that I said, you know what, if this is where he sees our family and where he sees himself, then I will go where he goes. Where he goes, I will follow. So it was just one of those things, So pieces just fell together. And ever since I have been in agreement and aligned with what he wants, what he wanted, nowadays, when I talk about this house and this project, people cannot believe it that at one point I didn't want.
You were not interested.
They would think we were aligned from the beginning, but we weren't. Until I thought, hey, let me be this woman, this man's peace. Because that is all men want. Men just want peace. And if you cannot find that peace with you, his wife, then what is the point? I
And
was
things don't
destroying my
even
home.
move. Things don't even move well. Like if you're in a situation where your other half is not buying into whatever you're
Mhm,
doing, is not supporting you. But I see that, when you have like when you're on the same page, things
mhm,
start moving a little easier. Even the bumps and whatever you have, they'll be
mhm.
easier to handle. And like when things are not moving, I'm sure even like getting things to move and be like, Mana, this I did not get this. You would even
Mm,
be scared because you're not with it. So you're like, it becomes like something heavy on him. He cannot share
exactly.
with the other person. So I'm really glad you got to that page where you're like, you know
I
what, this
did.
is uh
Yeah, and now he's. Do you know what he does? Slowly, he started to include me in decisions. He started to
right,
come to me for advice. He started to ask me and tell me what's going on. What kind of kitchen do you want? What kind of this do you want? Like things, like you're right. Actually, things start to move smoother. You've got
right.
someone you're on the same page with. And right now we are like in it to win it
Oh, I can see
together.
that. And I'm going to put your YouTube link in the description as well. People need to see how beautiful that place came on from the time that, and the way when you went to Zim, it's so much like you were saying, you were feeling in peace. Like this time around that you went, I think that was your second time going, right?
It
The
was
time that you
my
documented.
one, two. I went the first time with the kids. Then I went the second time. I think it was to clear the car. So this was my third visit to Zimbabwe was in
Yeah.
February.
It
Yeah,
you really radiated. You're really on the place. It
yeah.
was beautiful to watch how you are seen. And talking about moving, are you going to be doing that with the kids, or will they have to decide that on their own? I know that in this diaspora, kids like sort of like have to be included in this. It's not like back at home where you're like tukwenda kumushanasi and everybody has to go to musha whether
Mhm.
udaire or you don't want. Or so given that you the lovebirds have decided that you know what, our time in the diaspora is coming to an end, will you also have to bring the kids with you, or yeah?
This is a question we get asked on our YouTube channel the most.
Yeah.
What
I'm
are you going to do with the
sure.
children?
Right.
And we've responded to that question. And I think it's a fair question, and people tend to respond very passionately and emotionally. Some people even tell us off for our answer. And our answer
Uh-huh.
is no, we're not going to relocate with the children. The children are going to stay because they have a lot of needless to say, opportunities. Yeah, they've been
True,
born
true.
here. They understand how to navigate things here. They have a lot of their own self and personal growth and development to do. We are
Right.
going to leave them at a stage and time in their life where they are going to be able to be super independent,
Right.
and they will be able to thrive. And if they finish their higher education, whether they go through apprenticeship, university, and they want to come to Zimbabwe, they can. But we are most likely, not even most likely, we're most definitely leaving them here.
Definitely. Nice. Okay.
That is
That's
the decision
beautiful.
and choice that the adults are making.
Right.
Um, uh, I have never worked in Zimbabwe, and no
Mm-hmm.
doubt I have great faith and in the education system up to university level. We've got people who've
Right.
been educated at university of all over Zimbabwe, and they are here working as professionals. So
Definitely.
it's nothing to do with
I'm
the
a
quality of education.
University of Zimbabwe alumni myself.
Exactly. And look at you. You are
Yeah.
working in Canada. So I know that it's not a thing for me, Kuti, education wise. Yes, they can go
Right.
and have their
Right.
education there. But I want them to experience the fullness of the life they have here. I'm
Right.
not able to in this country, I can tell them about navigating the professional space, getting into education. I can do all those things for my kids, but in Zimbabwe, I wouldn't know where to start. And my kids are at that age where they are going into those things. So I'm going to definitely be leaving them here. And we can get on a plane and come here any time of day, anytime. So
definitely, because you have your purpose now, and it's also a matter of, choice. Because in the beginning, remember, you were scared of being deported and being in that autonomy being taken away from you. And I believe that's what this country gives us, choice. If your kids decide for themselves that later on they want to connect with their roots and move back, they should have, the choice. And if you guys go back to Zim and hopefully not, you decide that, you know what, this is not the place for us, you have the choice to pack up and come. So I believe that is the advantage that some of these countries are giving us. And as we're about to wrap up, I just want to talk a little bit about how it was for you connecting with other Zimbabweans who were in the country. Did that work for you? Because I know some people, when they say, okay, I don't want to link with other Zimbabweans, they're not good, and there are some people who are for it. So I just want to see in the spectrum, are you for having that Zim community, or are you the people who also want to stay away from the community?
I love community. I love people. I love connecting with all different types of Africans. So for me, I have friends who have become family. Sometimes my children cannot differentiate who is really my family from the family I've had to make up myself. So I am for the Zimbabwean community. Now, the things that happen with that community, you set the tone for it. That is what I always say. You set the tone in your friendships, how you conduct yourself, what you go and do within those friendships. So the things that I enjoy doing are things that are progressive, things that edify, things that help us to learn. And within my community, people gravitate to me actually for things like advice, whether it's something to do with immigration or something to do with housing, something to do with, employment opportunities. People gravitate towards me for that. So if you find that you are with Zimbabwean people and you don't like them, I always ask you, why is it you don't like them? Is it because of drama? But when this drama is happening, where are you in the midst of it?
What's your role in it? And why are you attracting the drama? Yeah,
exactly. And what do you do with these people who are your friends? Are you just in your community? There was a stage within our community, actually, especially when we all didn't have documents and we were waiting for documents. People used to just spend time in each other's houses. Then people would have drink sessions. And then, those were the things that people were doing. But even during the time we didn't have documents, there are programs that are running. There are things that we can access to be learning about things in preparation of when we have those documents. So I was always one of those people who are championing those things. We can go and learn this. We can go to there and find out about this. We can go and do. So I've never really had that type of drama that people talk about when it comes to Zimbabwean communities. I've never experienced it myself. And I think it's because, one, I'm also very selective of the people who come into my life and into my sphere of influence. In some ways, I've always been an influencer, actually. So,
and it radiates with how you talk and how you are on your TikTok and your YouTube. And my final question is, what advice would you give to others who want to move to the diaspora, and as well as okay, let's leave the living part for now. Let's talk about
want to stay.
Want to come and live in the diaspora. What advice would you give them?
I would say come. The opportunities are there, and there are plenty. Yeah, don't limit yourself. Come and experience the diaspora. It's one thing somebody telling you that the diaspora is like this, but it's
Exactly.
not like that for everyone. Some people have come
True.
here and they have done wonders. They have achieved a lot
Right.
in regards to finances, because most of the things that motivate us is the financial gains. Yeah, taking part in this economy. Come, learn. Be open to people giving you advice. Sometimes people will give you advice and you might think, well, that's never going to be me. I'm never going to be homeless. I'm never going to be this. But
Right.
just give a listening ear and get something from that. Yeah, be
True.
willing
True.
and open to learning new things. There's a lot of culture shock when you come to these diasporan countries. They do things differently, the way they conduct themselves and speak. And these are some of the things that we try to share with newcomers coming to the diaspora, that, oh my goodness, these are the things that happen here. But I found that there's a certain group of people who are coming to the diaspora and they don't want to hear those things. They know better than
Right.
you. They've
Right.
got everything on lock. And
Figured out. They don't want to hear
then
none of
they will even ask you,
that.
well, you've been here for 24 years. So and so came 5 years, 2 years ago. Now they have a house. Why is it you don't have a house?
Yeah, our journeys, I've seen that our journeys are different. Even the way we come to the same country, like the people who come with different ways. So obviously, as people, our journeys are going to be different,
Exactly.
and that's
So
just
maybe they
something that
also
we
need to
need to
be, I don't
understand.
know, empathetic, to be empathized
Hmm.
that, and
Hmm.
use a bit of their sense that, this person has been here, but it doesn't look like they've achieved much. Maybe, they've had those challenges in their journey and things
And
like
it's
that. But
not
in terms,
everyone who also wants to have a mortgage. Some people, they just simply want to rent. They don't want to be in this debt life here. They would rather invest at home or in South Africa. So just because somebody does not have a home here does not necessarily mean that they don't know the information and the pros and cons of it. Well, Maizu, this has been beautiful talking to you. And just for our viewers and our listeners, how can they get in touch with you if they want to connect with you further to, have more discussions? Because that is the whole point of this platform, connecting us together. And so people who want to reach out to you, how can they best do that?
well, they can go and check out our YouTube channel, The Tandi's Living the Good Life. And on there, I've got my email address for anyone who wants to, connect with me that way. So they can do that. I'm also on TikTok. I
Yeah,
enjoy vlogs. I'm Mai
she
Zoo
is.
on
Her TikTok
TikTok.
are
So
beautiful.
yeah, that's how people can and connect with us, really. I think some of the things we've talked about in this conversation, they're all there. Things to do with
Definitely.
how I came to this decision, things to do with how my husband managed while we had this conflict going, and how he managed to keep going or get me to that point where I aligned with him.
Right.
So yeah, it's all on our YouTube channel. Go and check us out and subscribe.
Definitely. I will also put this in the show notes so that people can connect with you more. So, Maizu, let's connect some other time. This has been lovely, and thank you for availing yourself. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and seeing you face to face. I know this is not face to face, but seeing you face
Actually,
to
do you know
face.
what? I followed you before you followed me. Do you know that?
Really? I
I
didn't know
followed
that.
you
I
before
didn't.
you followed me because I thoroughly enjoyed your vlogs and how
Oh
you
my
used to show
goodness.
us your life when you just got married and things. I love your vibe. I love your spirit. I love how individualistic you are.
Look at
It's
you. When the people that you so much admire say that about you. It's like, oh my god, I had no idea. I remember when I discovered you on TikTok, I would spend time trying to catch up on everything about you, the way you speak. You know how it's so people don't have time to look at, like, now we're in this culture of like we can only watch 60-second things, 2 minute
Yeah.
things, and when your vlogs would go up to 10 minutes, I'll be sitting there with like I need to see everything about this woman. I was
I
so fascinated.
but I was doing the same for you. I was doing the same with your videos. Like
Oh,
I
beautiful. You know
I'm
what? Maybe
starstruck
one of these
now.
days, if I'm going to come to the, you will be in Zimbabwe, so it's not one. Maybe I may not be able to come to the UK, but definitely when I come to Zim, I will come and see you face to face in our farm.
You
Yeah.
should. I'm planning to have an Airbnb, rural Airbnb. So I will have hopefully a
That's,
suite that would be just for you and your husband
I
and
will come with the
your
baby.
family.
I definitely will. Oh my God, this has been so much lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast.
As my first guest, that's beautiful. All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Out of the Teapot podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and feel inspired by the stories of Zimbabweans making waves around the world. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It helps others discover the podcast. Follow us on social media to stay updated on upcoming episodes and behind the scenes content. And if you have a story to share, we would love to hear from you. Use the hashtag OutOfTheTeapot podcast or reach out directly. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, keep growing, no matter where you are in the world.